Burnout to All Out fam, I am so excited for you all to get a chance to hear from the cream of the crop. These are our Burnout to All Out Elevate 360 mastermind clients who've been in my mastermind, high-level mastermind all year this year. And we do a summit once a year with our mastermind clients to debut their zone of genius. What is incredible is that these clients all embody a 360-degree approach to business. They all contribute in one way, shape, or fashion as subject matter experts that contribute to the pillars of Elevate 360, which is truly that we believe that bodies build businesses and that we have to have business strategy and legacy strategy as well. And so what is really cool about these clients is that through a series of a couple of days of a summit, they were able to highlight and bring value and educate in their fields, whether it was around self-leadership, leadership in business, business strategies, energetics and mindset, and or legacy, and how we take what we're doing and make our money work harder than we did for it to create impact and legacy over time. And so they really embody all that represents the 360-degree approach to business and the Burnout to All Out through line of our mastermind. So over the next couple of episodes, you are going to hear from all of these experts. You're going to get the details to their work in the notes section. And hopefully you're inspired as well as to what is possible for you as an entrepreneur in scaling your businesses the way these incredible human beings have. So hope you enjoy the series. Really excited to kick off with our very first speaker with Aron Kolosik. Aron, I'm so excited to have you here, really kicking off with day one. What I want to do is start with your professional bio so that our listeners understand the power and level of experience that you bring to the table. So Aron is a global business leader. He's a Fortune 50 executive, an executive leadership coach who helps high-performing professionals get and remain unstuck, reclaiming control of their careers and their lives. With more than 25 years of senior leadership at Procter & Gamble and Central Garden and Pet, Aron's insights into operational excellence, strategy, and leadership development are unmatched. You know, whether he's leading $1 billion supply chains or coaching burnout executives, Aron has a gift for simplifying complex issues, unlocking new levels of clarity and performance, and inspiring tangible action. Today, he helps leaders build success without sacrificing their health, their families, or their faith. And today, Aron's going to be talking to us about getting unstuck, taking back control of your work and your life. So Aron, I personally love this topic. I know you and I are kind of like brothers and sisters of another mother with our corporate backgrounds. So I just want to jump right into the meat of it. Like, let's just get right in and go straight to, where you think the C-suite is getting it wrong about real leadership. Like, I want to go right there, right now, and then we can kind of back up into some other topics, but I want to get our listeners' attention now. So what is C-suite getting wrong about real leadership today in 2025 based off of your experience?
I think people in the C-suite think that as soon as I get past this, then I will have time to do all these other things. Mm-hmm. Right? I can't tell you how many times I've had that conversation with my wife. Hey, babe, as soon as we get past like this project or this phase or this acquisition or this thing, like things are going to get better, and it never gets better. Right. And so I think when they think about that, they're thinking about it in a way of like, yeah, I'm doing all of this for sometime when they really should be thinking about all of those things actually fuel you. Right. This concept of one of the principles I talk about is this concept of the weakest link. And that's why, again, you and I connected a long time, this piece of like the wheel of life. Like the fact is that when you're strong physically, when you're strong relationally, when you're strong spiritually, like you can't not be strong in your business and your career. But instead, what senior leaders are doing is spending all of that emphasis and identity on the business. The other things are decaying when those things could actually be fueling them. And I think that's a
Mm.
huge mistake or huge misunderstanding that C-suite leaders have.
This is so good. I wrote this down. Your identity is the business,
For
right?
sure.
And I feel like this is actually kind of a toxic culture in the United States of like how we self-identify is by our job titles. Like, have you ever noticed, like, and I
Oh,
read this recently in a book, it's like only in America do people say, "What do you do?" Like, that's like how you're defined when you like sit at the table, right?
yeah, for sure. I remember a car ride with my wife years ago. I did some network marketing and I thought I was going to be rich doing network marketing, right? And I was working at Procter and Gamble. I was working in a factory. I was working my way up. And I remember driving home saying, I think we can make a lot of money doing this. And then my wife looked at me and said, but can you say you don't work at Procter and Gamble or what you do?
Right.
Or that you're not an engineer or that you're not a vice president or you're not a COO or like all of these things. And as you know, like personally, I've struggled with it this last year as I've
Mhm.
made this transition into executive and career coaching, like this identity of who I was, like it was so heavy and
Yes.
energetically, it's a lot,
Yes.
and helping people find out like who they are holistically is way
Hmm.
more empowering, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, we're sharper. Like when we have certainty about who we are and when we're walking down that path and you know that you're good, man,
Yeah.
like you could crush so many things in business, but yet it's when you start to isolate those things and you start to wonder in the back of your mind, hey, what's going on with my son when I'm 50, 5,000 miles away?
Hmm.
What's going on with my wife? Or like, I will get to start working out again when I get through this. Like it's just you forget those things along the way because you're so caught up into the title, you
Yes,
know.
it's so you're so spot on, and I see a lot of people nodding. And I don't know how many of you are high performers who've like navigated this yourself. And it's really interesting. And yes, Aaron and I have been working together this year, and I went through the same self-identity pivot myself, where like my ego, my self-worth was all based off performative, right? And when I made this pivot and was rediscovering who I was, it's a slippery slope for those of you who are entrepreneurs that you can catch yourself doing the same performative shit in the entrepreneurial world. Right, Aaron? It's
Yeah,
like,
absolutely. It's again, it's this concept of like what you do, like to your point on what you do, it's
Mhm.
more about who you're being along
Yes,
the journey, right? And
yes.
I would much rather have somebody say, Aaron is the most present, authentic, vulnerable person that I know. When I
Hmm.
see him with his family, when I see him at work, when I see him coaching, like that to me means more value than what I do, right? It's
Right.
who I'm being. And I think we mix that mistake all the time.
Yes. And I believe the work that you're doing is so powerful in the corporate space because I sometimes wonder, had I had a mentor that was focused in this area like you are today, back in my earlier years, would I have left corporate? I feel like there's a lot of great key
Right.
talent exiting the industry because they've recognized their self-worth. They've recognized that they don't need to give their entire souls away for 30 to 40 years to like be a happy, healthy, successful human, right?
Yeah, I came up, when I was growing up through Procter and Gamble, I was a vice president. I was in Switzerland and for the second time, but this time without my family because it was during COVID. I wasn't moving my family during that period. And I was miserable. But
Mm-hmm.
this conversation about like deserving to be happy is really important. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about happy, happy, joy, joy, right? I'm not like, I mean, shit happens in life. Sorry. Like that's life. What I'm
Yes.
talking about is like, you shouldn't be going to work miserable every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, and I didn't realize that I had any other opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
right? Especially when you've been with the company as long as I was. I was there for 23 years. And so the
Yeah.
handcuffs were pretty tight. And I didn't
Yes.
even think because of the stories in my head that I could go do something different
Yes.
until other people unlocked that for me. This concept of like, you don't have to be alone in this journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I think to your point, if you had had a mentor that could to walk you through that and say, hey, there's some different options here, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to tolerate this, or a mentor who can just be frank with you,
Mm-hmm.
right? I had a call with a guy that's looking to get to the next level a couple weeks ago, and he was on the call with me, and he asked me the question afterward. He goes, "What was your actual response
Mm-hmm.
to our conversation? What did you think?" I said, "One, it's clear that you know what you're doing. It's clear that you're a subject matter expert. but energetically you came off horribly, right? You
Mm.
showed up on the call, you're kind of droopy. It was pretty clear that you've been not taking care of yourself, and your energy, like, I don't have my MBA. And I'm like, this is not about you not having an MBA. This is about you believing in what you're meant to do, and we need to figure that out. And so I think having those frank, direct talks with people with care is so important, because who's telling the father that's making $150,000 a year that they're spending way too much time watching football and drinking beer? Like, this is the conversation. It's like, no, you need to be present. And by the way, shuttling your kid to practice is not quality time, right? And I think somebody needs to speak that truth to people to help them see and love that there's something better for them. And oftentimes people won't do that, because I would tell you, men, which is my small group program, like, we don't, like, when we go to the bar or we sit and watch a game, all we want to talk about is the game, right? Like, we don't talk about, hey, by the way, this isn't going on in my life. This isn't working. Like, nobody wants that. It's like, who's that guy? Can you go talk to the other group over there? Because we're just talking about this team here, today.
Right.
But they desperately need it.
Yes.
Right. They desperately need somebody to have that conversation, because at some point things break. Right. And we constantly in corporate America, I tell you, we're really good about hey, if you're going through a divorce, okay, Melissa, it's great. Please take the time that you need to take care of that. You go through a chronic illness or something like that. Hey, Melissa, please take the time that you need. Well, where the heck were we beforehand?
Yeah.
When we're like, are you spending the time that you need to be spending with your wife? Are you going out on dates? Are you spending time with your children? I noticed that you stopped working out. Like, what's going on? Like, we're not having those conversations in love for our people, and we need to be doing that.
This is so good. It's interesting. A friend of mine here locally is the pit crew chief for a NASCAR team. And one of the things that he does with his team, and I found this really interesting, is he has like important dates for his pit crew, like in his own calendar. So like one of the guys on his team was there, like working late, and the calendar went off that it was like his anniversary, right? And the boss is like, dude, you need to go. And the guy was like, didn't even realize it because he was so in it as this like professional athlete. But I think that it's like that type of culture of like group support, of helping others make outside of work a priority. I love this conversation so much. And I'm curious what advice you have to maybe other executives. So maybe, and I think about my husband, right? And you've chatted with him. It's like folks who've kind of grown up in a level of leadership that's a decade or two older than them. And that leadership isn't quite gone yet. And you've got these kind of slightly younger leaders moving up and into these, high level roles that want this type of culture. They want this type of balance, outside of just their own individual self-management and own individual prioritization outside of work. Is there any advice that you give to C-suite executives who are the example and that can create culture change within their companies?
Yeah, I think, to your point, you take a step back. There's a massive shift occurring in the workplace today. A massive shift. When you go from boomers to Gen X to millennials to Gen Z, like, what's important and how we go about our business is radically different. Radically different, right? Like, the suck it up buttercup is pretty much the way to go, and the boomer, and that's what Gen Xers were raised with. Whereas millennials and Gen Z, this just doesn't work. And so I think, the advice I'd have with somebody who's like kind of leading the charge, which is, starting to do just the small things of like putting some boundaries around some things, like putting some boundaries around when you send emails. So for example, like I've got lots of emails, lots and lots and lots of emails, but during my time, I would reply. But what I found is if I send it at nighttime during my time when I was like vegging, watching Netflix with my wife or something, like I was getting caught up, but I was creating chaos below me, because everybody's like, oh, I got to respond because so-and-so did that.
Yes.
And just the simple things of like hitting an Outlook, delay delivery, 8 a.m. And so in the morning, they get 10 emails from me. So but they would appreciate that, because then I'm not disrupting their time.
Yes.
right? And so helping with those boundaries, and then also pushing through the being self-aware that like, hey, past 5 o'clock, there's really no reason for anybody to be in the office. Like there really isn't. Like energetically, we can go, I've went through a ton of flow training, and we think about like how effective are you really? Like starting to push that piece. And oh, by the way, people watch when you leave when you're the senior exec. Right. It's a very simple thing. Like I was a plant manager in Phoenix, Arizona. And I remember going to rent a car when I was driving to the plant for my first day, like first day on the job. Like in the parking lot, like there was a couple cool cars. There's a convertible. I'm like, oh, that'd be really fun to drive. But I was incredibly aware of like what people would say when I drove up to the plant. Because
Yes.
people are always looking.
Yes.
Right. And so if it was me, again, I wanted something that was authentically me. So for me, it's a big pickup truck. Like if they had a big pickup truck, I was going to drive a Toyota Tundra, 4-door pickup truck. But that's me. I didn't want to show up as something else. Like this wasn't vacation. Like this is intentionality.
Yeah.
And so I think for those leaders, just being intentional and being aware of your actions, of like how those small things really make a huge difference, and then supporting them as they go, I think would be a great start.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. I'm sure my team is smiling because I notoriously fire off a ton of emails on Sundays because it's like my quiet time when my kids are out playing. And
They paid me for that.
yeah, exactly. So they can just start waking up on Mondays and just get emails on Monday.
It's better because you weren't necessarily, if you're not looking for a response right then.
No. Yeah.
No, you're just trying to clear your inbox. Like
That's
it's
right.
like
I'm
it's
just
part of your
closing the
thing.
tabs, clearing out my week.
That's what you're doing, which is great.
Yep.
But now all of a sudden you're making their time your time, right?
Yep.
And it's not what your intent was, but because you're the boss, people feel like they have to respond. So I think it's a really simple thing.
Yeah. So good. So good. And it's funny because I used to hate it with my own boss. I'd wake up on Monday mornings and I just had a litany of actions from him. Right. Okay, well, this is good. Let's move on. So, so clearly you had to travel the road to be the mentor in this, right?
Yeah.
You speak to building high performance life, right? Not just a career. So there has to be a backstory to this, right? I am an advocate. I'm a firm believer that we're molded into the mentors we are based off of our own journey and past. So I'm really curious, like what landed you here? How did you become an expert in this space? And is there a backstory that's led you to being the expert? Like, have you struggled with this yourself, I guess?
Yeah. So, back in my 20s, I thought when I mentioned that earlier, I thought I was going to get rich selling nutritional supplements. I really did. I can speak. I could do that. I was into working out. I was like, this is going to be great. And the guy I was working with, my upline, was making 70 or 80,000 a month. I'm like, hey, that'd be all right. For a guy that was making 65 or 75,000 at the time, I'm like, that would be pretty cool. But what I found was I went to a conference called Designing Your Future. And in that conference, the guy made a very simple chart for me. He said, I want you to rate your life on a scale of 1 to 10, different areas of your life. And prior to then, you think about how you're doing in life, but I hadn't really put some like quantitative to it. And he said, 0 to 10, where are you at physically? And I'm like, well, I'm in pretty good shape. I work out all the time. Like, that's pretty good. That's an 8. Where are you at with your family? I'm like, probably a 5 out of 10. Again, these are just arbitrary what I was thinking. And then he said, where are you at career? And I'm like, oh, that's going really good. I've got promoted I'm like one of the fastest promoted people as department manager. Like that was, again, identity.
Right.
And then he said, where are you at spiritually? And I was like, 2 out of 10. And he said, I want you to connect these dots in your life. And I want you to understand that that's the wheel that you're rolling down the road of life in. And you're only going to have that type of a big of an impact as what your weakest link is. And I'm like, what if that's really true? Like, what if that's really true? And that sent me down a faith journey. I'd already been down the physical journey because I'd, like with nutritional supplements and working out. So then I went down a faith journey of exploration of like, what if there is more than just this? And then I thought I was going to become a pastor, right? So I was like, oh, I'm going to sell everything and live down, and going from going to be rich to selling everything and living in a van down by the river. And my wife is like, please, like, I'll do whatever God asks us to do, but please, hope it's not that, right? Planted a church, spent 3 amazing years in that church plant after having explored that for a while. So I was the executive pastor there. And then I'm like, well, I guess that's not what God has. But during that whole time, Melissa, I took this concept of the weakest link in each one of these areas. And as a dork plant person, an operations person, I put Gantt chart out there and I got really intentional with every area of my life. And I continued to go back to that assessment every quarter, every 6 months, just say, how am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
That refined itself over the years. And the systems that I had built over the years got me to the point in my late 40s where I was like a little empty. I was in the COO of a $3.5 billion company. I physically was in good shape, great relationship with my family, great connection spiritually, but like something was missing. And then when I looked back and did some study on purpose and life and what I was supposed to do, it's like, no, I like being a guide. And so I looked backwards and I looked at, to your point, I looked at all the steps along the journey, the moves to Europe, to the move to Cincinnati to get a broader perspective of the business, the move to Switzerland, to live, to take my family abroad, back to Phoenix, all these things, like it all added up to you have a system and program that can actually help people that you've been living for 20 years. And so it was that sparked by another group. I was in a coach. So this is where I think I'm a product of the system, right? Like I hired a coach, I bought some courses, and in that course, he opened up this concept of your stories determine your future. Mm. And for me, the story of what I wanted to be was a plant manager compelled me for 15 years. Like it drove me to get there because I knew I needed to be that. But what I didn't realize was the reverse side of it, which was that the other stories were actually locking me in bondage and not letting me actually be free. And so as I started to pull that together and I had put all these tools together, that's where I realized, man, I would like to spend the second half of my life just helping people do that, right? I was blessed with these opportunities and these stories and these journeys along the way that I had some great mentors to pull it together. And I'm like, what if I could just do that? And that's how I got here. So last September, I went full-time into this space, and I can happily say I'm a full-time entrepreneur in the space, leading this game of career coaching. And it's been a great journey, but that's how I got there.
Yeah, so powerful. And I am a firm believer, like you and I are both very spiritual people. I believe we are put on a journey and path to chisel us, to make us the ultimate mentors in our space, to our journeys create the impact, right? If we choose the assignment, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
our mistakes make us vulnerable, right? I think about all the stupid things that I've done through the years, right? Where it's relatable.
Yeah.
Right. And I think part of this, the other piece I would say with the C-suite gets it wrong is that we're not vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Right. We think that we have to put up the mask. Mm-hmm. My wife has got this mask thing. I'm like, it's scary, like this cosmetic thing, right? I'm like, we put on this mask, and I'm like, we don't need to put on a mask. Like, we just need to be authentically us. Like that next generation wants to see us being us. They want to see that, what? I struggled to get up yesterday. Right. And I was trying to get up, and I have this plan, but I don't execute the plan perfectly all the time. Mm-hmm. What I do is I'm resilient.
Yes.
Right. So I stay with it.
Yes.
But I got to share that. Right. If everybody then looks at you as something that's unachievable, mm-hmm. then it's people won't follow. The people won't listen. It's like, it's like, well, I can't never do that. So why would I even try? Right. When in reality, it's not even real.
Yeah. Right? It's interesting, Aron. One of the most powerful pieces of feedback I got early in on my leadership, and I don't know if this resonates with you. I shifted from peer-to-peer to leader, like leading my peers after having been peer-to-peer, and then started doing some hiring. And, in corporate, like you go through 360 feedback through, through quarters or whatnot. And one of the biggest pieces of feedback that really changed how I show up as a leader was that a number of people on my team were afraid of doing something wrong because I came off so hard as perfect in my execution, and I didn't show my flaws, and it was toxic to the people around me because they wouldn't come to me with their challenges, right? They were afraid to admit that they were up against a wall and they needed support and mentorship in it because I was showing up, never showing my flaws. And so I love what you're saying, because that instantly
I think my team would agree today. On a daily basis, I admit to screwing up, right? Like we want to create, especially in entrepreneurship, we want to create a culture of imperfect action to stay ahead, right? It is the imperfect action that keeps us relevant in the market. I think that's something that corporate leaders can really learn from, is just sharing that vulnerability, because you can actually get more transparency from your team if you're more authentically yourself, right? And
Right.
not wearing that mask.
Well, and I think it's not just transparency from the team as well. It's also commitment and buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the end of the day, people want to follow somebody that they know has their back and that gets them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. Like when you think about the issue of transition and turnover, and Carrie's going to talk a little bit about some of that, I think, in the space, but like it is really important that people buy into you as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that you have their back. And I will never forget, I was a vice president, and there was a young woman from Brazil. She was living in Panama, and I had a good relationship with her. I coached her a lot of times. And I remember being on a call one time, and she typed to me on Teams, and she says, "What's the matter with you?" This is a couple levels up. She was a director. I was a vice president. She pings me on the call and says, "What's the matter with you?" And I'm like, "What, like, tell me more, like," and she's like, "You're not being yourself." And I get emotional about it, because like, that's the thing that makes a difference, right? It's like when you can have people understand you so well that when you're off base, that they understand that that's different than normal, and they care about you, like as a leader, that tells you that they know you care about them. Right? Because that's a
Yeah.
hard thing to do. Think about it. Like she was a director, I was a vice president, and she was
Yes.
like, "What's the matter with you?"
Right.
I could have responded like, "Who are you talking to?"
Right.
But my genuine response was, "Well, I'm really curious about what she's thinking,"
Yes.
right? Because that's where it made a difference for me, and that's also what let me know that I was not in a spot where I was unhealthy in some areas in my life at that time.
Mhm.
That she helped me see that I couldn't see for myself. So I think
Yeah.
it's super important.
That is so important. And this is kind of off on a little bit of a tangent, but since you are in the entrepreneurial world now, and like
Yeah.
we're speaking to entrepreneurs as well as corporate
Yeah.
professionals, is the power of a really trustworthy second in command. Many of you
Yes.
in my world know Jackie Denowit. She's been with me. I don't think she's on right now. She's on the back end building some crazy funnels at the moment, but she's been with me since day one, Aron, and she is like the one person in the company that will come to me and just slap me with a wet noodle and be like, what the F are you thinking? Right? Like,
Right.
or like, yeah, I just don't want you to lose yourself here. Or, she has no issue professionally kind of pushing back. And this is in corporate too. It's that healthy friction. Like there needs to be this healthy culture that it's okay to push back. And it's especially in entrepreneurship where companies and teams are much smaller. For those of you who are in startups, like as soon as you can have a right hand person who is your second in command and can call you when you aren't, in alignment with your mission or all the things, it's powerful because all of us as visionaries and CEOs have our blind spots, and having those trustworthy confidants who can call us on it is really important.
Yeah, I found the same, over the last 11 months, right? And I have a person, her name is Amber Young, and if I get off pace, she will bring me back on track in terms of like design elements, things that we're putting out there. If like I put something out and she's like, "What was that?" Like I will get the call, like what's going on there. And so I think, yeah, always having people around you, and personally, I have what I call a board of directors that I meet with every week. So I
Yeah.
think that's also really important. And I think you can find that in community, like in Circle and like in some of the groups that you host, right? Like when you can get into community with like-minded people, they can
Mhm.
also hold you accountable, right?
Yeah.
That's actually why I chose to leave Procter and Gamble and go to the Central Garden and Pet, is because that
Mhm.
group of men, and one of the guys is on this call, actually, his name's Boyd Campbell. Like they helped me see some things that I couldn't see, and they put the mirror up in front of me. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, got it. I got to shift. Right. Because
Yeah.
I say I'm doing these things, but here's the reality. And they're kind of putting that in front of me. So like we all need those people to hold us accountable.
Yes. So powerful. Well, final question for you as we kind of tie in and kind of wrap up this interview, really on more on the theme of just, more than just business. Tell us about systems that scale and what business and life have in common. Because I know we've been kind of interweaving business and life, and obviously scaling is one of my favorite things to do. So talk to us a little bit about where you see that these systems that scale are common between business and life.
It's a great question, because I think for me, that's what started it all. Right? I started with a system, I worked in a factory. And one of the things that two or three basic things every day you have a daily management system. You have a daily direction setting meeting. Where are we at? What's working? What's not working? And you're going forward. We had a system to do clean, inspect, lubricate. So we had to do things that had to happen every day. We had planned maintenance, things that had to happen every 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. Now, as I've switched gears into entrepreneurial systems, there's just other systems, my sales response follow-ups, my KPIs, like how are things working on KPIs? So all these systems help me see the picture. It's the same thing in my personal life. Like, how many dates did I have with my wife this last year? Like real dates, like not just going to a movie where you never talk, right? Like things where you actually connected, like an actual thing that you went and did together. How many times did you spend one-to-one with your kids? How much time did you spend in meditation, like on the app? What's your streak for journaling? Like, how do we look at these different things in our lives to make sure that we are staying on track? Which is why my freebie tool is it's an assessment, right? That assessment gives you a numerical score in all of these areas of life that you can do quarterly where you're like, I'm on track, right? Because we drift. Systems are there to keep you on track. And in our personal life, why not have a system to say, well, how do I measure my connection or my certainty or my finances, my awareness of my finances or my physical health? That's what I've created in that tool out there with that assessment.
So good. We'll have you share that tool in the chat, but I love this is in such alignment for me, Aron. Every year, starting really early and earlier, I'm actually going to be doing it next week for next year. And it's September, right? But every year, I actually sit with my calendar for next year and prioritize the important milestones in life first. So some of I went to Iceland for 2 weeks this past year. It was planned last November. All of my kids' birthday parties already in the calendar. My husband and I's anniversary and our trips already in the calendar. To your point, date nights, it's a recurring invitation in my husband and I's calendar. We found out the hard way very early on, if we didn't treat it like a business and give it the attention that our business got, we would give each other our leftovers. And when things aren't good at home energetically, that is a ripple effect into everything else in life. And that was a hard lesson early on in corporate with little kids to I know that initially we felt well, we shouldn't have to make it we shouldn't have to schedule togetherness. But the reality is, before we were married, we scheduled dates. We scheduled time together. But then when we became roommates, we took it for granted, right? So I love that so much. So Aron, tell us a little bit more about this resource and how people can connect with you.
Yeah. So the resource, and I think Charlotte shared, is at unstuckmasterplan.com. And it is literally a 5-minute short quiz that'll ask you 8 questions, multiple choice, 4 multiple choice questions. So it's you have 4 selections. Super easy, take you less than 5 minutes to do. And that's going to give you an idea of where you're at. Are you stuck? Are you accelerated? Or are you in freedom? A different level. And it's going to tell you which ones of those things are working or not working. And perhaps that's the unlock to a next level for your life. And so that's what goes on there. And I would just say, if you heard this today, I may not be your person, but you might know somebody who is my person, right? So you might be married to somebody who's my person. And what I do is I work with men in a small group setting. They're in corporate America trying to make their way up the ladder, but yet are struggling to keep it all balanced. It's not like that things are bad. It's just they're high achievers. They want more. And yet they're they're at the spot where if I give them this, something over here is going to break. They really don't understand how to get it to that next level. And that's what I do in my small group program. And then I have a very specific niche of people that I also work with, which is both men and women, called plant managers. I believe the plant manager role who runs a manufacturing facility is one of the hardest roles in corporate America, and they get the least amount of support. And so I'm super passionate about supporting them through my Plant Manager Accelerator program.
Aron, thank you so much for showing up today and just your your heart-centered work for greater impact in the industry is just huge. And it's just been so much fun working with you. And I know we've still got a lot more to do before the year is up.
That's right. Thanks, Melissa. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
I hope you found this episode as inspirational and kick-ass as I enjoyed interviewing with it. If you love this and you resonated with it, please reach out to the speakers. Their information is in the notes. Feel free to reach out to us. And as always, if you're curious about mentorship and support and business coaching under the Burnout to All Out umbrella, go to burnouttoallout.co and check out what we have going on in the business mentorship world today, including business coaching and retreats that are live and experiential and take a 360-degree approach to business. We can't wait to see you on the other side, wherever we collide.